Hello everybody, welcome back to ECO152. In this video we are doing chapter 3 of the module, which basically covers the government and fiscal policy. So in this chapter we are going to explain why the government participates in economic affairs. We'll also explain the meaning of fiscal policy. We'll then discuss the government's spending and the financing of such spending, and then discuss the criteria for a good tax. Now we are going to discuss the composition of the government or the public sector. So the public sector consists of the following bodies. A, the central government, which mainly deals with national issues such as the defense force or foreign affairs. B, regional or provincial government, which deals with regional issues such as housing, clinics, and schools. C, the local government, which basically deals with local issues such as sewage and waste services. And then D, public corporations, which consist of all the state-owned enterprises such as ESCOM and Transnet. Please take note that there's a difference between general government and the public sector. General government consists of the first three bodies, that is the central, regional, and local government, whereas the public sector consists of all the four bodies, including the public corporations. That is, A plus B plus C is equivalent to the general government, and then A plus B plus C plus D is equals to the public sector. Also note that government and the public sector are often used interchangeably. So this illustrates what we just spoke about. That is the public sector. It covers everything that is inside the box, meaning that it consists of all the four bodies, the central government, provincial, local, and public corporations, whereas the general government consists of only the three bodies, that is the central government, the provincial government, and the local government. And then this diagram here illustrates the three levels of government, that is your national government, provincial government, and the local government. And at the top here, you have your legislature, your executive, and your judiciary, which are your three different branches of the government and are nominally independent, meaning that they all have separate powers. Each branch is responsible for a task that is different from the other. For instance, the legislature is responsible for the formulation of the law, and it consists of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, whereas the executive is responsible for implementing the law and policies, as well as the developing of policies that are tabled in the legislature and written into law. This therefore consists of the president, which is the head of the cabinet and the state, as well as the cabinet, that is the ministers that are the heads of our national departments and deputy ministers. And the last branch is the judiciary court system, which is mainly responsible for interpreting the law independently of the other two branches, which consist of the Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, the High Court, and the Magistrate Court. These are further divided into political heads of departments, which consist of the ministers, as well as the administrative heads of departments, that consist of the Director Generals. On the provincial sphere, you have the provincial executive and the provincial legislature, which are divided into Premier and Executive Council, which is appointed from the legislature. On the provincial government, you also get the political heads of departments, that is, the members of the Executive Council, as well as the head of department. Whereas on the other hand, there's administrative heads of department, which is the Director Generals and the Chief Director. Lastly, the municipal government, that is the local government. It is divided into municipal council, which consists of the political head, which is the mayor, as well as the executive mayoral committee, which is further divided into the municipal administration, that is the administrative head, the municipal manager, as well as the head departments. The interaction between government, households, and firms. If you remember very well, in the previous chapters we did provide a brief explanation of this diagram. However, we'll explain it in detail in this video. So the government is involved in both the factor market and the goods market, where it purchases factors of production from the factor market and goods and services from the goods market. In addition to that, it also provides some public goods and services to the firms as well as the households, such as education and healthcare system. It does this because these services have positive externalities, meaning that they have the potential to confer benefits on the society that exceed the cost of providing these services. On the other hand, the government extracts taxes from the firms as well as the households, such as VAT and income tax, while also providing transfers to households and firms. In other words, the government plays a redistributive role in the economy because all the expenditure on factors of production or goods and services as well as transfer payments made by the government are funded by either taxation or debt. Another way in which the government plays a role in the economy is through regulation. He places regulation on certain activities undertaken by households and firms. For example, the government restricts land use for residential or commercial purposes and requires new construction projects to undertake environmental impact assessments. The government participation in the economy. The extent of government participation in the economy remains controversial because some economists believe that there should be government intervention, while some believe that it is not necessary to have government intervention in the economy. The government in Scandinavian countries, for instance, have a greater role in the economy compared to the US government if we consider government expenditure as a share of GDP. There are arguments in favor of markets playing a major role in the economy. And there are also arguments in favor of the significant role for government intervention. The first argument is that private initiative and market forces are generally more efficient than the government. So some economists generally believe that private sector is more suitable to job creation than public because firms are more likely to respond to consumer preferences and market trends. And generally, most people believe that private services are more better than public services. On the other hand, arguments in favor of a greater role for the government are as follows. The government must provide an appropriate environment in which markets can operate, that is the legal framework. And then the third argument is that markets sometimes fail. Although markets can be more efficient, they can fail sometimes. A good example of this can be the abuse of monopoly power. That is when a firm has a dominance in an industry and start to charge prices that are higher. The fourth argument is that the market produces efficient but not equitable outcomes. Some people earn little income, so they cannot sometimes afford some of their needs. And then this makes the market not to be equitable. And then the last argument is that the market tends to generate instability through business cycle. Economies go through a regular pattern of ups and downs in the value of economic activity as measured by GDP. So the ups and downs of business cycles directly affects the demand for business products. When the economic activities are up, the levels of consumer spending increases, which in turn increases the confidence of business the profits and investments. Unemployment also start to decrease. But when the economy activity is down, consumer spending falls and the confidence of consumers also falls, which results to lower profits for businesses. And then they start cutting down investment. Unemployment rises as businesses start to cut back and reduce stock. So the overall consensus is that both the government and markets are needed in the economy. How does the government intervene? In the previous slides, we already discussed this, that the government make provision of public goods and services such as free education and healthcare services to the public. The government is also a market participant. That is, it buys goods and services from both factor and goods market. Government spending on public goods and services. And then the taxation, that is, it collects tax from the people and the firms. And also the creation of regulation for households and firms. Fiscal policy and the budget. Fiscal policy relates to the level and composition of government spending, taxation, and government borrowing. The main instrument of the fiscal policy is the annual budget. This is a reflection of political decisions on how much to spend, what to spend on, and how to finance the expenditure. However, the macroeconomic effects of public sector budget cannot be ignored. Fiscal policy is therefore viewed as a more direct intervention than the monetary policy when applying business cycle countermeasures. Government response to business cycle. So the response is different in different phases of business cycle by the government. When there's recession, that is when there's temporary economic decline, the government applies expansionary fiscal policy. That is, the government starts to spend more, and then it reduces the taxes, and then the budget deficit increases. On the other hand, when the business cycle is on the expansionary phase, that is when there's an increase in the economic activities, the government applies contractionary fiscal policy. That is, the government spending is reduced, and then taxes increase, and then the budget deficit decreases. Fiscal policy and the budget. The main instrument of the fiscal policy is the budget, having main variables as taxation and government spending. The spending therefore plans for the year ahead with the reflection of political decision. The budget year runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March each year. So there's also a medium-term budget that is presented in October, which offers a longer-term view of the fiscal policy. Other instrument that is used to smooth business cycle is the monetary policy, which we did in chapter 2. Budget Speech 2021. In his speech, the minister quoted that our public finances are dangerously overstretched. We owe
A lot of people, a lot of money.
meaning that South Africa is currently in debt. He also pointed that the expenditure amounts to 2 trillion, which is mostly on social events, and also emphasized that there's a need for infrastructure investment. The introduction of zero-based budgeting to promote efficiency in expenditure. He also addressed the crime and corruption in the budget. Because of the time, I have to cut this video here, and then I'll do part 2 of chapter 3 on the following video. Thank you for your attention.